Hey guys, this is Miss Kim doing my first video lesson today. Just want to give you all some housekeeping things before we get started. The noise in the background is the dishwasher. Hopefully it'll run its cycle soon. Also want you to be expecting a phone call from me this week, just checking in with you guys, making sure that you have everything you need. And if not, how do we go about getting it to you? This will be our new normal, at least until April 20th. And then we'll just go from there to see what the governor and the government wants us to do from that point. So if you need anything, please be thinking about that as I get ready to call you and your families this week. I'll also be looking at iReady lessons that were supposed to be done last week for Tuesday and Thursday, getting an idea of who has completed those and who has not. Lessons still have to go on, guys. Learning still has to go on. So we'll be checking those in the upcoming days. So just kind of be ready for that. We are going to be finishing our book this week, Number the Stars. So we are on week 3 of that. Our end in mind for the week is going to be, I will be able to provide evidence from the story to support the theme. We're going to talk a little bit more in just a minute about what is the actual theme of our book and thinking about examples that would support that so-called theme. So we'll do that here in just a minute. New set of vocabulary coming up this week. And so our words are protruding. And that means sticking out. So if you've ever seen a newborn baby or a little baby, sometimes they'll be asleep or laying and they've got their tongue kind of like this and they're just sleeping. It's protruding, it's sticking out just a little bit. Nothing really menacing about it. It's just kind of an innocent thing. Sometimes if you're taking a walk in the woods, you'll see a rock that is protruding through the earth or the dirt. That also means sticking out. Faltered is stumbled, and we've all done that, whether we're playing outside on the playground or we're playing in our backyard at our grandmother's. We'll be running and we will have a stumbling moment. So faltered, the ED ending there means that it's a past tense, that we stumbled. At some point, we faltered along the way. Invisible, we all know that one. Not able to be seen, and always think about those of you who've heard ghost stories in the past. A lot of times there will be invisible entities in that story, so they're not able to be seen. Prolong is lengthen or to draw something out. What I will tell you is that I will not prolong these lessons any longer than I have to, because, you know, you have things you want to do, but we want to make sure that we get the gut of our lessons done. So to lengthen out or to draw it out unnecessarily. Tantalize is to tease. If you've got younger siblings, or if you are the younger sibling, someone has tried to tantalize you, or you have tantalized others. Whether it's like, well, I've got an ice cream and you don't have one. Teasing, to tease is to tantalize. Evident is clear. It will be evident to me this week when I run the iReady reports who has completed those lessons. It will be clear. Confronting is facing. And then our last one is the solution, is an answer. And so when I think of solution, I always think about there is a problem involved. And so whether it's a math problem that requires a solution, you want the answer, Miss Frederick will want the answer to that, or whether it's just an everyday problem, such as if you'll look at your team talk, the sentence that goes with this particular word has something to do with if you miss the bus, what could possibly be the solution to that problem? Well, the solution might be that you walk to school if you live close enough. Solution could be that you call your parent to come back from work to take you to school, or you wake your parent up and they drive you. So possible solution is a possible answer, and that's kind of what we're looking for. Now, we want to go back to our end in mind here, which is being able to provide evidence from the story to support that theme. And so with this end in mind, I want you to think about, there's a fable, and fables a lot of times have these themes involved, or a moral type theme. They want you to learn something from it. So let's think about the tortoise and the hare. That is a story that we're all familiar with. It's where you got a turtle and a rabbit who are going to have a race. And the rabbit's like, yeah, I got this. Let's go. And he just takes off at a fast rate. And he's just going. And the turtle is just kind of like, hoody, taking his time, moving himself at a very slow rate. The tortoise, in the meantime, is like, oh, I've got this in the bag. He's taking a nap. He's taking a rest. He stops to eat. And in the meantime, that tortoise just keeps on going. He doesn't stop, and he doesn't give up. Well, in the end, we all know how this story ends. That the tortoise / the turtle ends up winning the race. And we've all have heard that the moral of this story is slow and steady wins the race. Or the theme of the story would be, the lesson they want us to learn is that theme of slow and steady wins the race. And then we're looking at what supports that, because that's really what the end in mind is about. What is supporting that particular theme of slow and steady wins the race? Well, the turtle / the tortoise never stopped to rest. He didn't stop to eat. He didn't stop to take a nap or to visit with friends. He just kept on going. And those would be the pieces of evidence that would support that theme of slow and steady wins the race. And so that's what we're going to be looking at this week in our reading, identifying, or we will be given a theme, and then we're going to be looking at what are the pieces of evidence that supports that. Now, I want us to think about the theme, and we want to remember that the theme is always the big ideas, or the lesson that the author really wants us to learn. And I want you to take just a moment. I want you to think, okay? I want you to think about, what do you think the lesson could possibly be that this particular author wants us to learn about our story thus far? Just think a moment. Some of you all may have guessed correctly, and if you didn't, that's okay. That's what we're here to learn about. So really what the author's wanting us to learn is that sticking together and helping one another is very, very important. And so if we think back through our story, that's been pretty prevalent throughout our story. Every small victory that Anne-Marie has had in our story thus far has been because someone has helped her. And it's been very evident as we've gone through. So we want to take just a moment, and I want everybody to get their books out. Okay, we're going to be on page 88 today. And if you don't mind, I think I'll have a seat while you get your books out. I wish I'd had time to get you guys some sticky notes before you left. And for that, I'm very sorry, because we are still going to be answering questions. And I will have you guys posting those answers on your Google Classroom. And that will allow me to get a really good idea of how you're grasping the questions, as well as giving those daily grades. So it's just like when I'm pulling sticks in the classroom and we are using our rubric and we are scoring those, and then I take those and give those daily grades. So it's very important for you to still do the questions and log into Google Classroom. And if you're not logging in when I'm making my phone calls, then I'll be kind of asking what's the hold up. You know, might need to talk with a parent to see if there's a barrier of any kind, so that we can kind of knock that barrier down. All right, so we are on chapter 11. When we stopped our story on test day, if you recall, Anne-Marie and Ellen are in, I guess it's the family living space at Uncle Henrik's, and there is a pretend funeral going on. And so we're going to pick up right from there. Will we see you again soon, Peter? Well, Anne-Marie blinked, and across the dark room she saw Ellen too, peering into the narrow wooden box in surprise. There was no one in the casket at all. Instead, it seemed to be stuffed with folded blankets and articles of clothing. And Peter began to lift the things out and distribute them to the silent people in the room. He handed heavy coats to the man and wife, and another to the old man with the beard. "It will be very cold," he murmured. "Put them on." He found a thick sweater for Miss Rawson and a woolen jacket for Ellen's father. And after a moment of rummaging through the folded things, he found a smaller winter jacket and handed it to Ellen. Anne-Marie watched as Ellen took the jacket in her arms and looked at it. It was patched and worn. It was true that there had been few new clothes for anyone during the recent years, but still, Ellen's mother had always managed to make clothes for her daughter, often using old things that she was able to take apart and refashion in a way that made them seem brand new. Never had Ellen worn anything so shabby and old. I want us to take a look at the word refashion. It's not a vocabulary word, but it's an unusual word. Refashion means to repurpose something or to recycle something. So even though there hadn't been new clothing, her mother was able to take something that was old and reconstruct it to make new clothes with it. That's what refashion means. Let's go to the second paragraph. But she put it on, pulled it around her, and buttoned the mismatched buttons. Peter, his arms full of the odd pieces of clothing, looked toward the silent couple with the infant. "I'm sorry," he said to them. "There is nothing for a baby." "Well, I'll find something," Mama said quickly. "The baby must be warm." And she left the room and was back in a moment with Kirsty's thick red sweater. "Here," she said softly to the mother. "It will be much too big, but that will make it even warmer for him." And the woman spoke for the first time. "Her," she whispered. "She's a girl. Her name is Rachel." And Mama smiled and helped her direct the sleeping baby's arm into the sleeves of the sweater. And together they buttoned the heart-shaped buttons. How Kirsty loved that sweater with its heart buttons. Well, until the tiny child was completely encased in the warm red wool. Her eyelids fluttered, but she didn't wake. But Peter reached into his pocket and took something out. And he went to the parents and leaned down toward the baby. He opened the lid of the small bottle in his hand. "How much does she weigh?" Peter asked. "She was 7 pounds when she was born," the young woman replied. "She gained a little, but not very much. Maybe she weighs 8 pounds now? No more." "A few drops will be enough then. It has no taste. She won't even notice." Well, the mother tightened her arms around the baby and looked up at Peter, pleading. "Please, no," she said. She always sleeps all night. Please, she doesn't need it. I promise she won't even cry." And Peter's voice was firm. "We can't take a chance," he said. And he inserted the dropper of the bottle into the baby's tiny mouth and squeezed a few drops of liquid into her tongue. And the baby yawned and swallowed. And the mother closed her eyes and her husband gripped her shoulder. Next, Peter removed the folded blankets from the coffin, one by one, and handed them around. "Carry these with you," he said. "You will need them later for warmth." Anne-Marie's mother moved around the room and gave each person a small package of food, the cheese and bread and apples that Anne-Marie had helped her prepare in the kitchen hours before. So if we think about our end in mind, being able to provide evidence from the story to support the theme, and we're saying that our theme is sticking together and helping others. In this reading that I just completed, there are two very distinct things that support this theme. I want you to think about, what did Peter do? Take a moment and think, what did Peter do? And I'm not talking about Peter bringing all the people to this house. So you want to be very specific with your thoughts. What has Peter done in the reading I just finished? That's right. He's making sure that everyone has clothing. He's passing out coats and jackets and blankets. So that would go with sticking together and helping each other. He's helping these people by giving them these items. Now, what does Mama do that also supports this particular theme of sticking together and helping each other? That's right. She gives the new mother her own daughter's sweater. Even though Anne-Marie says Kirsty loved that sweater, she loved the heart-shaped buttons, Mama knew it was more important to give the new baby this really warm and cozy sweater that the mom could kind of bundle her up in to keep her good and warm. That's what I mean about evidence to support the theme. So we know at this point what our theme is. And I'd like you to take a moment. I want you to write that on your team talk. Write it on day one. And I've got one here in front of me also. So I'd like you to flip over to day one, if you've not already done so. And at the top of that, I want you to write our end in mind. Because once we sign off today, you may forget. It's not like in class where it's always posted and we're always referring back to it. Because you will be asked to do a lot of these questions on your own. So our end in mind, I want you to write it, end in mind, is sticking together and helping others. And in parentheses, I want you to write the word theme, because that is the theme of our story. Now, this is where our questions are going to come in. And as I read them aloud, I'd like you to break them down rather quickly. We don't have technology here that we can kind of use with this, so normally we would break them down. We'd break them down in class, make sure that the comprehension aspect of it is there. So things are a little different, but we'll make do. Number one, how has Peter's relationship with Miss Johansson changed? Okay, and I want you to draw an arrow up from Peter, and I want you to write Lisa's fiance, because we always want to remember who our characters are. So Peter is Lisa's fiance. And Miss Johansson, that another arrow, that is Anne-Marie's mom. All right, let's go to number two. On page 93, and we know that we're going to need to circle 93, they're telling us in the question exactly where they want us to go to find the answer. So on page 93, why does Anne-Marie think that pride is an odd word? Number three, give evidence from today's reading that supports the theme of sticking together and helping people. So that is our end in mind question. That's our big question that they're wanting us to truly grasp and understand by the time we get to test day. And the last question that we will be looking at for today is number 4. How does Anne-Marie feel when Ellen leaves? Is she sad? Is she hopeful? Is she relieved? And or is she mad? So we know we're only going to have one obvious choice here. Remember, you can always eliminate as you kind of work your way through those, and that'll help you come to the right conclusion. Unlike in class where we might do 2 of these every day, we will be answering all 4 of these. And I want you to answer them in your notebooks first. And then when you log in tomorrow, I will be telling you which of the 4 I want you to upload into Google Classroom. So you will need to do all 4, but there will only be 1, maybe 2 that you'll be uploading. Without a shadow of a doubt, you can circle number 3. That is our end in mind question. So we know, or you should know by now, that that's the most important question. I'm going to want you to upload that one without a doubt to Google Classroom. And then I'll let you know tomorrow which other one to upload for day 2. Are we good? All right, let's get back to our story. We are at the bottom of page 90. And here we go. Last paragraph. Finally, Peter took a paper-wrapped package from the inside of his own jacket. He looked around the room at the assembled people, now dressed in the bulky winter clothing, and then motioned to Mr. Rawson, who followed him to the hall. Anne-Marie could overhear their conversation. Mr. Rawson, Peter said, I must get this to Henrik, but I might not see him. I'm going to take the others only to the harbor, and they will go to the boat alone. I want you to deliver this, without fail. It is of great importance. And there was a moment of silence in the hall, and Anne-Marie knew that Peter must be giving the packet to Mr. Rawson. Anne-Marie could see it protruding from Mr. Rawson's pocket when he returned to the room and sat down again. She could see, too, that Mr. Rawson had a puzzled look. He didn't know what the packet contained, and he hadn't asked. It was one more time that Anne-Marie realized when they protected one another by not telling. If Mr. Rawson knew, he might be frightened. If Mr. Rawson knew, he might be in danger. So he hadn't asked, and Peter hadn't explained. Now, Peter said, looking at his watch, I will lead the first group, you and you and you. He gestured to the old man and to the young people with their baby. Ing, he said. And Anne-Marie realized that it was the first time that she had heard Peter Nelson call his mother by her first name before. It had always been Miss Johansson, or, in the old days, during the merriment and excitement of his engagement to Lisa, it had been occasionally Mama. Now it was Ing. It was as if he had moved beyond his own youth and had taken his place in the world of adults. Her mother nodded and waited for his instructions. You wait 20 minutes and then bring the Rawsons. Don't come sooner. We must be separate on the path so there is less chance of being seen. And Miss Johansson nodded again. Come directly back to the house after you've seen the Rawsons safely to Henrik. Stay in the shadows and on the back path. You know that, of course. Well, by the time you get the Rawsons to the boat, Peter went on, I will be gone. As soon as I deliver my group, I must move on. There's other work to be done tonight. And he turned to Anne-Marie. So, I will say goodbye to you now. And Anne-Marie went to him and gave him a hug. But we will see you again soon? She asked. I hope so, Peter said. Very soon. Don't grow much more. You will be taller than I am, little Longlegs. And Anne-Marie smiled. But Peter's comment was no longer the lightheartedness fun of the past. It was only a brief grasp at something that had gone. Peter kissed Mama wordlessly. Then he wished the Rawsons Godspeed, and he led the others through the door. Mama, Anne-Marie, and the Rawsons sat in silence. There was a slight commotion outside the door, and Mama went quickly to look out. In a moment, she was back. It's all right, she said in response to their looks. The old man stumbled, but Peter helped him up. He didn't seem to be hurt.
Maybe just his pride, she added, smiling a bit. It was an odd word, pride. Anne-Marie looked at the Rawsons sitting there wearing the misshapen, ill-fitting clothing, holding ragged blankets folded in their arms, their faces drawn and tired. She remembered the earlier, happier times. Miss Rawson, her hair neatly combed and covered, lighting the Sabbath candles, saying the ancient prayer, and Mr. Rawson sitting in the big chair in the living room, studying his thick books, correcting papers, adjusting his glances, looking up now and then to complain good-naturedly about the lack of decent light. She remembered Ellen in the school play, moving confidently across the stage, her gestures sure, her voice clear. All of those things, those sources of pride, the candlesticks, the books, the daydreams of theater, had been left behind in Copenhagen. They had nothing with them now. There was only the clothing of unknown people for warmth, the food from Henrik's farm for survival, and the dark path ahead through the woods to freedom. Anne-Marie realized, though she had not really been told, that Uncle Henrik was going to take them in his boat across the sea to Sweden. She knew how frightened Miss Rawson was of the sea, its width, its depth, its cold. She knew how frightened Ellen was of the soldiers with their guns and boots, who were certainly looking for them. And she knew how frightened they all must be of the future. But their shoulders were as straight as they had been in the past, in the classroom, on the stage, at the Sabbath table. So there were other sources too of pride, and they had not left everything behind. That's where our reading stops for today. So I want you to really be thinking about the questions. Feel free to work on questions today if you want. The uploaded piece is really what I'm going to be looking for tomorrow. When we do make it back to school, hopefully on the 20th, we'll take a couple of days and I'll go through your answers in your journals to kind of make sure that you had answered everything that you needed to answer that was assigned. So it's not a, if you want to do all four. It is a, you need to do all four. That is the assignment. Tomorrow when you tune in, I will be giving you some oral instructions on how to sign into Google Classroom. And if you have any questions about that, you can log in to the 5th and 6th grade Facebook page that Ms. Frederick has created. Or you can give me a phone call. I don't mind giving my phone number. My number is 344-6147. Just kind of make sure that your question is pertinent, that you really have a question, and I will do my best to walk you through it, and we will get through this together. So until tomorrow, where we'll have further instructions, class is dismissed. See you later, alligators.